what would it be if it were right? Tell me about if you pulled all of this off, what would be different than it is today? And help people really imagine very clearly, um, based in reality. I don't want them off in total disconnected from what they're doing, but you know, what would your business be like if it were what it needed to be?
Hi, I'm Renee. One of my favorite Agile go-to questions to ask is, what other options are there? Now, the reason why I feel it's so powerful is because often we think about the very first thing that comes into our head when we're working on a problem and trying to come up with a solution. But if we ask, what other options are there, we can step back and start to think a little bit more deeply about the other options that can allow us to get to our outcomes in a more effective, more efficient, perhaps cheaper way.
So, why do they want to change? Why do they want to change now? And why do they want help with that change? Those are usually the first ones. But for me, it gets then really interesting when leadership teams say, well, we want to see more collaboration in the organization. And I ask them, okay, tell me about what collaboration looks like in your leadership team today. And more often than not, they are actually hoping to see something in the organization that is currently not true for them in the leadership team. And more often than not, I find that is down to the fact that they don't share any organizational goals. Somehow they ended up in a situation where every leader can tell what the goals are for them as individuals, but they don't have any common goals or any shared goals together. So the questions usually in the beginning revolve around that. So then the follow-up questions are around helping them to create those shared goals and help them to reflect on the behaviors that they live in their leadership team and how they compare to what they're seeing or not seeing in the organization. So that's usually the starting point.
Hello, my name is Hafa, and my favorite question is, what does your intuition tells you? I like this question because it opens for the other center of intelligence that you have, like your instinctive center of intelligence, your gut feeling, your gut reaction, and also your emotional center of intelligence, your heart. So you can also ask variations like, what does your body tells you? Or what does your heart tells you? I like these questions because it opens for different perspectives.
What would you like to talk about? Don't underestimate this question. It confirms that they are in charge. It's also short, and it implies that there is something they want to talk about. It's an obvious but great question, and yet I still see people opening with, how can I help you today? Or is there something you're bringing to today's session? They are very different questions that are inferior to, what would you like to talk about?
Hi, my name is Jan Inge, and my favorite coaching question is, after this session, what would you like to be different? This question quickly gives the coachee a tangible vision. And we could get a tangible vision by reducing the question to, what would you like? But by inviting the coachee to consider what will be different, we are associating them into this tangible vision. What do they see as different? What is behaving different? And what is feeling different? The question also gives a lot of motivation because it subtly raises the awareness around the current state and the desired future state. What would you like to be different? The question also saves you a lot of time by going directly into the underlying issues and the real problem, instead of discussing and talking about the problem at surface level. So after this session, what would you like to be different?
Anything else? Isn't this the perfect question to ask to a group when you feel not everyone has contributed yet?
Are you up for it? Like, this is not somebody else's job. This is your job. And just as you see the teams that are changing around you struggling, are you ready to take that on yourself? And are you ready to find those edges? Because the change that we need to make, that we are called to make, it doesn't leave anyone untouched. And we all have to be willing to embrace that. And are you ready? Are you willing? Is that something that you can do? And that can be a very profound conversation for people as they realize what are they really signing up for. So,
what's the real issue? Is one of Sir John Whitmore's top 10 powerful questions from his book Coaching for Performance. He stresses its use to help get the client out of the story. I'm sure that we've all been in coaching sessions, either as coach or coachee, where what is being brought to the session is not the underlying issue. This is a punchy, probing question that can bring a dose of helpful challenge. It does, however, need to be delivered right. With the wrong tone, it could be perceived as aggressive. I find adding "so" before the question helps. So, what's the real question? Using that curious tone helps make it friendlier.
If you were 90 years old, looking back on this situation, what would you say to yourself? So this question is a perspective question. So we're looking to put in whatever the challenges that are going on into a perspective over a lifelong period. So there may be many reasons for that. It could be that there's a lot of drama going on and perhaps it's not quite as bad as it seems, or it could be that there's some life-changing events happening, and that to put those into perspective of a journey. Often we think about the progression of our lives from a forward-looking perspective. Well, sometimes it's good to look from a reverse perspective. If you imagine the last few days on Earth, when you look back over your life, what would be the things that stand out? What is the most important things that happen on this journey? So this can really link us into something more than the day-to-day. What are the real things that you want to do with your life that are important to you, that are going to make a difference to you? So it's a focusing question and a perspective question.
Sir John Whitmore had a question relating to the goal for the conversation. He said, if you had a magic wand, where would you like to be at the end of this? Now, I find that a bit confusing. If you had a wand? Why would you have a wand? My variation is, if I was your hairy godmother and you could have one wish, what would it be? Now, there's two downsides to my version. Firstly, mine is a longer question. Secondly, in my version, I am granting the wish, which might reduce the client owning the situation. However, I think that humour creates a better session, increased engagement, greater divergence of thinking, and better retention. So, if you're confident that the client owns the problem, I think my version is a nice twist and compensates for the 50% increase in length. And around Christmas, you can adjust it to ask what they hope Santa will bring them. Ho, ho, ho.
Hello, my name is Myron Parks, and I'd like to, just tell you what my favorite coaching question is. My favorite coaching question is, what does value or success look like for you in this session? I ask this question of people because I think in a very, I would say, a unique way. And I typically help people to make the abstract real. And the reverse of that process doesn't work when I'm just, going it alone. So it's most important for me to get from them where they would like to go so that I can then help them, with techniques and just thought exercises to reach their goals or to solve problems and things of that nature, whether it be personal, professional, or academic. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye, y'all.
One of my favorite Agile coach question is, imagine if you have reached your goal now, how would it look like and how do you feel about it? The reason why this is my favorite question is sometimes we tend to focus on the difficulties of reaching the goal too much that we forget how much do we want it. So the question here helps to awaken people's motivation of the goal. Also by visualizing and describing the goal, it helps us to change the habit of focusing on the challenges before taking action to reach it.
So my question is, what has not been said? So there's always so much that comes off the tip of the tongue, always so much that's been said before. We're really looking for the underlying hidden things, the things which perhaps we have to think a little bit harder about, the elephant in the room. They're the real things which we want to get out in the conversation. And once they're out, then new insights can be formed. So what has not been said yet? That's my question.
My favourite coaching question is, what would your successor do? I like the question because it's an invitation to unburden oneself, step back from the goal or challenge and just reassess with a slightly different lens. What would someone fresh and energised see? And in this way, it's really good for exploring options or helping someone unburden or get unstuck in a conversation. It can bring a lot of freshness and energy and creative ideas. So if you know the person well, you could substitute successor for someone they aspire to with aspirational values or a leadership role model. So it could sound like, what might Jacinda Ardern do? Or what would Chris Hemsworth do? I hope you have a lot of fun playing with it in your practice. Happy holidays, and let me know how you get on.
Hi, my name is Pirita, and my favorite powerful question is, what is the challenge? This is because I often experience that people, they don't know actually what is bothering them, and when they start describing the challenge with their own words, they usually discover that the situation isn't that bad, or that the challenge is something totally different that they thought. It is also much easier to try to find solutions when the challenge is described.
What would that give you, or variations of this? Often, people bring a surface level outcome to the session, and it takes some digging to get to the real problem. What would that give you is a bit like the 5 whys process, but without being like an annoying child asking why. Of course, 5 whys is a great process. Participants just need to be aware of the format. Questions like, what would that give you? They're easier to integrate into a coaching conversation.
Hi, my favorite coaching question is, and what else? Simple, and yet it's empowering. I like it because what I have noticed, it generates a lot of insights, options, possibilities, awareness, not only for the coachee, but also for the coach. When asked, it helps coachee to slow down, dig deeper, explore, and find answers for themselves. As a coach, it enables me to stay curious and keep my advice monster at bay. So, now I'm curious to know what's your favorite question. Thank you.
What does that look like? So, of course, it's a visual question, so I love it. And it's an amazing question to be able to take to your client if they're kind of talking at surface level, for you to go a little bit deeper and find out what's at the root of their thinking, or to kind of make things a little bit more tangible. So, for example, perhaps your client is just talking about wanting to get to value, for example. What does that look like? It's a really great way of getting a bit more tangible, but also taking the client into a bit more of an emotional space. And then with that, they start to kind of get the feeling of what it is that they're trying to get to. So it's fantastic to use in terms of goal setting, and to get some kind of clarity around goal setting, but also really useful in the problem space too. So what does that look like?
Hello, Mary Lanion here. So one coaching question that I like is, what would that do for you? And I like this question because it takes the coachee on a journey of exploration. After all, we're coaching people so they can find their own solutions. They can go on a journey of discovery. And I think that question does that. And it allows them to consider different options so that they can eventually pick the best option for them and act on that. So that is why I like that question. And have a lovely Christmas. Thank you.
What's the most important thing that we want to cover today? So this question is a convergent question. So lots of times there's lots and lots of things to talk about, and the coachee may not know exactly what it is that they want to focus on for the session. So we want to make sure that we get the most out of it. So when there's lots and lots of stuff going on, lots of things the coachee's talking about, what's the most important thing that we want to talk about today really gets the coachee to start thinking about, what do I want out of this? What is it that comes next? So it's a convergent question to get to the topic that we want to cover, or the action which we want to take after the coaching session has finished.